Support Name Explain on Patreon for ad-free videos, exclusive podcasts and blog posts, and to help choose what names get explained. Click the link in the description. If you don't happen to be from the UK or aren't too versed in our culture, then there's probably two main stereotypes of English people you have in mind. These are the two ideas what English people are like that have seemingly hit the mainstream and been adapted across the globe. The first of those being the quintessential, posh, mild-mannered, well-spoken though bumbling English person. Think of the likes of Stephen Fry, Hugh Grant, or even Queen Elizabeth II. And the other famous stereotype is that of a tougher demeanour, people who are a bit more streetwise, crafty and inner city. Think of the likes of Michael Caine, Jason Statham, Danny Dyer, pretty much anyone in a Guy Ritchie film. And of course Dick Van Dyke's terrible attempt at being this kind of Englishman in Mary Poppins. This stereotype of an English person has a name, with that name of course being Cockney. Cockney, however, is more than just a name for someone with these characteristics. It's more specifically a name given to people from a specific part of the country, that being East London. And Cockneys also share something of a shared culture, specific accent, dialect, and famously slang, that being Cockney rhyming slang. Think of things like apples and pears instead of stairs, or dog and bone for phone. It's a seriously interesting slang which could really have a video unto itself. But despite the shared image we have of a Cockney person, it really is a geographic nickname above all. Traditionally, to be even dubbed with this name in the first place, you have to be born not just within London, but within a very specific area of London. To be a Cockney by traditional standards, you have to be born within earshot of the Bow Bells, with Bow Bells referring to the bells of St Mary le Bow Church in the city of London. Now, if you look on a map of modern London, you'll see that this church is nowhere near East London where modern Cockneys reside. And London is a pretty loud place. It'll be hard to hear these bells from just around the corner. Well, you must remember that in the past, London would have been quite different. London would not have been anywhere near as big or loud or covered with tall buildings that block out sound. The church was more likely built when London was still just a small walled city, hence why it's so central in the city. In 2000, a study was actually carried out to figure out from how far away these bells could have actually been heard in the past. They came to the conclusion that they could be heard 6 miles to the east, 3 miles to the south, 4 miles to the west, and 5 miles to the north. So while sound travelled furthest in the east, it actually went around in multiple directions, giving quite a large range of who could be Cockneys. However, over the years, the term has become applied to those specifically in the east of the capital and its greater area. And I must stress that this is primarily a geographic nickname. None of the aforementioned stereotypes of being a Cockney have to be applied to you to be one. They are just connotations that have been linked to this name over the years. You don't have to act like Michael Caine or Vinnie Jones or even use rhyming slang. If you're from East London, you can be a Cockney. Though of course the thing we're most interested in with all this isn't so much who is and isn't a Cockney or church bells, but the name of Cockney. Normally, nicknames for a group of people that relate to where that group of people are from sound similar to the name of the location they reside in. E.g., people from Manchester are called Mancunian and people from Glasgow are called Glaswegian. These nicknames sound very similar to the place they represent. And while there are more fitting sounding names for people from East London, like with the simple Londoner or East Ender, where on earth did Cockney come from? You can look at a map of not just East London, but London as a whole, and you won't find anywhere with a name similar to this in which Cockney could be derived from. Well, minus Cock Lane, I guess, but why that has that name is a story unto itself. So simply put, why are people from East London called Cockney, as the title of this video asks? Well, there doesn't seem to be one clear answer into all of this. The word seems to have an interesting history, possibly arrived from a couple places in which you really wouldn't expect it to. And despite today Cockney carrying the connotation of tough, streetwise inner city blokes, or hard nuts as we like to call them, the name actually seems to derive from more spoiled, affluent roots. The online etymology dictionary, or the source of all my power as I like to call it, says that the name Cockney as it is seen today comes from the 17th century Middle English words of cockney and cockney. These terms mean things like spoiled child or milksop. I'm sure you know what spoiled child means, but milksop is a term that isn't used anywhere near as much as it should be today, and that's a tragedy because it's a great word. But to call someone a milksop means you're calling them things like feeble, timid, indecisive, or lacking courage. As I said, the word originally seems to be more applied to London's more affluent residents, those who could be more spoiled and pampered, and perhaps lack the moxie of the harder working people of the city, and wouldn't really do anything for themselves. So while we know that the modern term of Cockney comes from the Middle English terms of Cockney and Cockney, where on earth did these terms come from? Well, this is where things start to get a little more split, as I found two routes as to where this name came from. One of these actually comes from the Norman conquest of England. We all know this story, right? The French Normans arrived with their leader William the Conqueror planned to take over, 1066, the Battle of Hastings, the Bayeux Tapestry, arrow to the eye, yada yada yada. This French rule in the land seriously reshaped the English language into what it is today. In example, as we talked about a while back, it created display in animal names depending on whether we are farming them or eating them. Though it seems the Norman influence on language affected the residents of London too, as it's thought that Cockney may derive from their word Cockney, which of all things means sugar cake. Sugar cake being a specific kind of cake that is well made with sugar. Though why exactly is it thought that Cockney comes from this confection? Well, this origin actually fits more in line with other geographic nicknames we have, as the Normans supposedly called London Pas de Cockney, which means land of sugar cake. So like I said, with this name for London, the nickname of Cockney sounds much more similar, like with Manchester and Mancunian. The reason the Normans called London the land of sugar cakes is because they saw London as an affluent area, a part of the nation in which you could live a good, indulgent, pampered, spoiled life, without really having to lift a finger for yourself, and of course eat many sugar cakes. So you can see from here that this Norman term for London fits in really neatly with those 17th century Middle English words meaning spoil and milksop, which also seems to have created the verb of cocker, meaning to overindulge or pamper someone, which in all honesty is a verb I haven't really heard much of in recent times. Though this is just one idea as to where Cockney ultimately derives from. Another idea may actually be the more popular of the two, and two relates to the lack of energy these original affluent Londoners would demonstrate. This comes from that Middle English term of Cockney, which was actually a combination of two Middle English words, cocken and eye, which means a cock's egg, as in an egg from a male chicken, a cockerel, not the other kind. But why were people talking about cock's eggs? Male chickens don't lay eggs. Well, in the past it was what they might actually do. Often chicken farmers would find these small yolkless eggs. As they were yolkless, so unable to be fertilized, it was thought they were laid by cockerels. A lot of mythology actually went into these cock eggs, and stories were told in the 14th century that if one were to be hatched, somehow a beast called a cockatrice would emerge with the body of a serpent-like dragon and the head of a rooster. It could supposedly kill people by just looking at them. Truth be told, this is a bit off topic, but in all honesty, I don't think I'm ever really going to get the chance to talk about it again. Of course, in reality, these cock eggs weren't really the eggs of roosters with the potential to birth deadly dragons. They were actually the produce of a chicken just starting to lay eggs. Normally the first egg a hen will lay will be smaller and yolkless, as its body is still changing and adapting to the new process of egg laying. And over the years, these yolkless cock eggs have gained other names too, like fairy eggs, wind eggs, witch eggs, dwarf eggs, and the one I like most, fart eggs, because I'm an immature child and farts are hilarious. So now we've explained a little bit better what exactly a cock's egg is and the role they played in English folklore. But why on earth did these weird first ever eggs end up naming an entire group of people from an area of London? Well, this once again relates back to the spoiled, pampered, do-nothing lifestyle of the affluent Londoners. In England's past, cock eggs were seen as a lot of things: strange, mysterious, possibly a threat to humanity, but above all, they were pretty pointless. The fact they lacked a yolk meant that they couldn't be fertilized, and they were too small and yolkless to be really eaten or even make any other use of them. They were just really rather useless. And what else was seen as being really rather useless? The affluent residents of London, of course. They were seen as lazy and affluent and have to work hard compared to those in the countryside. They were seen as being as useless as a cock's egg, so the term of cock's egg was applied to them to represent their uselessness. And over the years, this was adapted into the Middle English Cockney, and then the word we have today of Cockney. However, of course, I think it's safe to say, despite this origin of the name meaning lazy, spoilt and useless, that name doesn't describe Cockneys as a whole in this day and age. I mean, I don't watch EastEnders, but they seem to do anything but sit around doing nothing. Also, what I found interesting and definitely didn't expect when I started researching this video is that between sugar cakes and eggs, the term Cockney is seriously baking related. Who saw that coming? Nevertheless, the name Cockney is with us to this day, and is perhaps the most well-known geographic nickname my nation has produced. Many years ago, I did a poll on Twitter asking non-UK residents which of 4 UK nicknames they'd heard of, and Cockney won by a landslide, which proves just how universal the concept of Cockney has become. The Cockney caricature is perhaps one of our biggest exports to the wider world. However, Cockney isn't the only odd-sounding geographic nickname we have in the nation. People from Liverpool are known as Scousers, people from Birmingham are known as Brummies, and people from Newcastle upon Tyne are known as Geordies. These are all just as out of place as Cockney in East London, and perhaps these names can be explained sometime in the future. Thank you to all my patrons who support Name Explain on a monthly basis. Patreon is vital to Name Explain, and donating just $2 a month allows you to enjoy ad-free videos and bonus Patreon exclusive content. It also allows you to help choose what names get explained in upcoming videos, and gets your name here with all these awesome people. Thank you so much for all the support you guys give Name Explain. Hello all, and thank you so much for reaching the end of the video. Check out another video and subscribe to stay in the loop on all things Name Explain. You can find me on Twitter, I'm at NameExplainYT. On Instagram, I'm also NameExplainYT, and on Facebook, just search Name Explain. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and once again, thank you all so much.